Hello, and welcome to How NetApp Accelerates VMware Migration to Google Cloud. Today's webinar is sponsored by NetApp and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, and slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Now, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. There's a blog on getting your data-intensive VMware workloads to the cloud. There's a PDF of top reasons to use NetApp with Google Cloud VMware Engine, and the slide deck is included in the PDFs as well. Also in there, you'll find a link to the Gorilla Guide Book Club where you can get access to Actual Tech Media's great printed resources on technology topics, as well as a link to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Now, at the end of the webinar event, we will be awarding a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of the prize drawing can also be found in your handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. So to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. So at the end of the event, we'll look at all the questions, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's get to today's fantastic content. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our presenter today. We have Carl Connerth, who's Senior Product Manager for NetApp Cloud Volume Services for GCP. Carl, welcome
Yes.
to the webinar.
Hi, Scott. Thanks very much for introducing me. Thank you all for spending some of your precious time here today with us. I really, especially on a Friday, so thank you very much for joining us. With that, let me go ahead and kick this off. So let's go to the first slide. And a little bit more about me. So my name's Carl Connerth. I'm, like I said, product manager here. I've actually been at NetApp about 14 years. I started off supporting global customers, maybe like yourself. In fact, Google was one of my first customers, and now they're my key partner. So there you go. So I worked with global customers for a number of years, then moved into product management. I supported ONTAP together with VMware vSphere. So driving our storage solutions together with VMware, which gave me a great background for what I do today. Now I manage CVS, our cloud volume service for Google Cloud, and specifically working with Google on integration with Gcve. And then even before that, before coming to NetApp, I was in many of your shoes. I managed IT operations, whether it's working on servers, network, storage, all that stuff, all the headaches and challenges many of you probably have. So let's go ahead and take a look at how you can use NetApp Public Cloud Storage to accelerate your move to vSphere Cloud solutions, such as the Google VMware Engine. Oh, and I should say that I'm joined today by my partner at Gcve, that is Manish Lahani. He's going to be available to answer questions. If you have them, he'll be in chat and definitely can tackle any questions, both about CVS as well as Gcve. So here's the agenda. And we're going to start off with just some basic introductions. What are the two services? And then go into how our customers are using them, how they use them to accelerate their move by either implementing file sharing, taking advantage of integrated data protection, features of CVS, etc. And it's really a true partnership. You see those three logos there? We spend a lot of time together, whether it's Google, Google Cloud specifically, the NetApp team, as well as VMware. We all spend a lot of time working together to bring this solution to you. And speaking of the Google partnership, we've actually been working together with Google on our Google Cloud integration almost 3 years ago. You can see there, November 2019 when we started. So almost 3 years we've had this service. We started with a hardware-based service. So if you know anything about NetApp, you might know that we have engineered storage systems. They support both NAS and SAN protocols. We put a lot of effort into them, spinning disk, all flash systems, a great variety of systems. And we started by offering Cloud Volume Service using those hardware-based systems. One of the unique things we've done with Google is we implemented a software-based version of it, CVS standard software. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. That's where we actually took the same storage software and containerized it and run it on Google resources. So that's pretty exciting. That's unique to Google Cloud. And over time, we've expanded into more regions. We're now in 26 different Google Cloud regions. And we continue to add data protection features, things like volume replication. So if you have a volume in one Google region, you can replicate it to another Google region. Backup, integrated backup directly in the service. For our software version, we implemented cross-zone HA, so that if some zone failed, we would automatically and seamlessly fail over to another zone in that region. And then most recently, we added support for customer managed encryption keys using KMS. We always encrypt your data when it's stored in CVS, but this gives you the option to wrap our encryption with your own encrypted keys. So that's a cool feature that we added. It's currently in preview with a hardware-based service. And like I said, I've been working with the Gcve team for almost 2 years now to bring this combined solution to market. So one of the interesting facts about the service, about our partnership, I guess, is that our CEOs are brothers. So you can see here a clip from the video. This video is available on YouTube. It's also available on NetApp TV, our own TV channel. And you can find, the link should work for you in the slide deck that we put in handouts. Thomas Kurian on the left is CEO of Google Cloud. George Kurian, my CEO for NetApp, on the right. And while they both follow different paths, they are now working closely together. And if you check out this video, I don't know, it's like 3-minute video, they talk about our partnership. And then they talk about the important customer value propositions. You can see the high points that Thomas makes in the video. Pretty straightforward. The interesting thing is on multi-cloud data management, the last point, he's actually referring to two things. He refers to both the use of multiple cloud service providers. So I think that was interesting that Google recognizes that customers have a large number of choices of service providers. Google, obviously one of the best choices there, but they acknowledge that there may be reasons to work with other service providers, either specialty regional providers or maybe another hyperscaler. But he also talks about hybrid cloud. And that's where I think this comes full circle with VMware, is combining your on-premises environment together with that provided by the hyperscaler. So I think that's pretty exciting. So with that, let me go on to kind of introducing Cloud Volume Service. And so it's basically a managed file service. Like I said, it's backed by either hardware or software. It's managed file service. We support protocols, all the common NAS protocols, NFS version 3, NFS 4.1, CIFS, and or sometimes referred to as SMB. And our customers use those for a variety of needs. Windows file services being a common one, whether it's needed to share between applications or for user and group shares. And then there are enterprise applications, and those could be hosted on Windows or Linux. We see both. For example, SAP. We have a number of customers using CVS to host their application binaries. So having those available, highly available in the regions of their choice, or other ERP or CRM systems. Web content. We have customers hosting all their web content behind their web servers on CVS, or even collaboration tools. So all these different applications, many of them need to share files, and CVS is a great solution for that. We also have databases, and databases such as Oracle or SQL Server. Now, there are a lot of ways to run databases in the cloud. Google offers database services that they manage. You can run it yourself in a VM. You could run it in GCE, or you could run it in Gcve. We actually have a technical report, and if people are interested, we have a technical report on running SQL Server on top of CVS in Google Cloud. So if you're interested, I can put that in chat later today, but you can search for it. You just look for CVS, SQL Server, Google Cloud. I think you'll find a link to TR, what's the number, 4898. And then even the more modern native cloud applications. So your Kubernetes applications, many of those need to store data. And so we support persistent volume claims. And that's one of the things we did with CVS software is support very small volumes. Currently, we support down to 1 gigabyte in size. And that was designed to provide persistent storage for your containerized apps. So a broad range of application needs met with CVS. And then we bring all the great data protection that NetApp's been known for forever. In fact, this is what brought me to NetApp 14 years ago. I was a customer before that, and I just loved using snapshots. I used snapshots to protect data locally, to roll back after database, we had serious database corruption in our enterprise application. And then taking those snapshots and using them for DR and backup and getting rid of tape. I hated tape. It was my nemesis. So anyway, I loved snapshots so much. I came to NetApp in whatever it was, 2009, and we take those snapshots and you can use them in many different ways. Obviously, data protection. You can take a snapshot of a volume, and it's going to be a crash consistent view because we know all the files are closed because we're managing the file system. So you can easily revert a volume back to that snapshot. You can also mount a snapshot and copy individual files. And in fact, I'll show you a demo of that at the end of this session today. But you can do other things with those snapshots. You can make clones. You can make volume clones. This was something we actually originally developed with Oracle for their training centers, where you could take a snapshot and make a read-write volume out of that snapshot, multiple volumes if you want. So they used it to spin up training environments. You can do the same thing for your application development and testing. And then the real data protection, which is taking those snapshots and replicating them to another region. So you have a copy in the event of any kind of problem in the region, or for backup. You can take snapshots and maintain multiple copies of those snapshots in a backup repository. In our case, we use Google Cloud Storage or GCS for that. So a lot of different ways to take advantage of that. Now, I mentioned we had 2 different service types. So this kind of summarizes them. There's a lot more detail in our documentation on Google Cloud. So if you need to just search for Cloud Volume Service, Google Cloud, I'm sure you'll get a link to our documentation. We have these are called service types. So if you look for the tab service types, you'll find more detail. But like I said, CVS Performance is our hardware. It's backed by NetApp engineered hardware systems. We've been supporting them for over 25 years. And we have a robust set of protocols, and we're supporting them in this service. So NFS v3, v4.1, Kerberos, all of that is supported, as well as your Windows SMB or CIFS protocols. We also support dual protocol access. You can have one volume with access coming from Windows clients via SMB, Linux clients via NFS. So we support simultaneous dual protocol access. Because these are highly available engineered systems deployed in pairs on the back end, we're able to deliver very high availability with the hardware. And then we've also worked with Google to take advantage of their high performance, high availability network connections to our systems. So throughout the path, we're able to deliver 4 nines of availability with our CVS Performance service. I talked about snapshots. I talked about using those snapshots for fast volume clones, using them for volume replication. And we have customers using them both for DR protection, I mean, in the unlikely event that you would lose a region, but also for backup. Some customers prefer to use replication for backup. And then, as I mentioned, we're currently previewing our integration with Google KMS. So this allows you to create your own keys, and they could be keys directly in the KMS server, or you could tie KMS to on-premises KMIP or hardware security module to further protect your data in the unlikely event that something would happen and the volumes were exposed to someone else. And then on the right, you see our CVS standard software service. Like I said, this is the containerized version of ONTAP using Google resources. We deploy using Google Kubernetes. We deploy using Google persistent disks. And this has been developed for about 2 years now. We have NFS v3 support. We're working on 4.1 support. We have NFS SMB support. So we cover the core protocols of interest. And it's available in 2 different versions. One is deployed in a single zone. Now, the control plane runs in regional resources. So the control plane for CVS standard software is highly available. Even if a zone were to go down, it's available. But the single zone version uses single zone storage resources. We also offer zone redundant version, which uses regional persistent disks. So this is basically using highly performant replication in the Google Cloud environment on the Google PD resources to make sure that we can offer 4 nines of availability. So single zone, I think, is 99.95% availability. Zone redundant offers 4 nines, 99.99% availability, and is cross-zone. We have the same snapshots, so very fast, very storage efficient snapshots. And that's a case where you'll see the storage efficiency, because when you take a snapshot, it really doesn't take any additional space to have that second image of the volume. As you make changes, we'll need to track those changes. So there'll be an increment, but we don't need to keep all the other data that hasn't changed between the original and the snapshot. So it's very storage efficient for you to take advantage of snapshots. Today, we don't make clones from snapshots in CVS standard software. So for that, you'll need to use backup. We do have integrated backup. And so you could back up to GCS and then rehydrate that into a new volume. And we have some customers who are doing that today. So those are the core features. There's some other differences, but I thought those were the main ones I wanted to kind of highlight today for you. So let's see now. Oh yeah, availability. So we are available around the world. I mentioned 26 different regions. We generally support replication within a continent because that's where our customers want it. They have data locality requirements. And so we have replication within the US, we have replication within Europe, we have replication in APAC as well. And so you can see the different dots, the purple dots, CVS performance, the hardware-based service, the blue dots, CVS, the software-based service. I will note, if you're really trying to look at the dots and figure out where they are, I'll point out that you'll see the upper rightmost dot in North America is for Montreal. There will soon be another dot right next to it for Toronto. It's not shown here on the map right now. That's in preview, but we expect to have that generally available in the next 2 weeks. So if you're interested, if you're a Canadian on the call and you're interested in using Canadian resources, stand by. We should soon have that for your use. And here's a different way of looking at availability, spelling out all the different regions where we're available. And this shows both where we have CVS as well as Gcve. So these are all the regions where they're available. And this list combines both the hardware and software service. For example, the first one, Asia South 1, is CVS software. That's in Mumbai, India. What else? Zurich is another software. And then Sao Paulo in Brazil is another area where we have the software service availability. The rest are all hardware-based service availability. And we recommend using Gcve and CVS in the same region. That way there are no additional network charges and you get the best performance. So that's an introduction to CVS. Now let's turn to Gcve. And I got these slides from my friends at on the Gcve team. So I will do my best to kind of give you kind of a summary of them and how they work best for you. Now, the important thing about Google Cloud VMware Engine is it runs the native VMware stack on Google Cloud, and it's on dedicated hardware. So the great thing about that is you get full access to vCenter, you get access to NSX, vSAN, HCX, all those to manage and operate your VM environment. So it's just like on-premise. You just lift and shift your environment to Google Cloud, and you get the best of VMware and the best of Google Cloud in this kind of integrated cloud experience. Now, the best thing from my perspective, because I told you, I'm used to manage a lot of this stuff, servers, network, all that junk. Google manages the entire infrastructure for you. So they maintain the networking, the storage, the compute, everything required to run the service. So you don't have to manage the hardware. You don't have to deal with supply chain hassles to get hardware, deploying it, setting up networking. You don't have to deal with the software. You don't have to deal with the patching, the maintaining, of all the different tools like VCSA. They do all that for you. And I don't know about you, but I'm happy to have somebody else handle those kind of headaches for me. So I think that's the great feature. Google provides an SLA of 4 nines within a single zone. And as you can see, it's sold and supported by Google, and it was developed by Google together with VMware. The solution is fully certified by VMware. So let's take a closer look. Let's take a look at use cases. So these are some common use cases. And the one I hear most about from customers is the one on the left. It's where they've got a data center and they want to migrate it to the cloud. They have events like a data center exit, maybe a contract's expiring, or, one of their managers read a book and said, we got to get in the cloud. We got to get out of our on-premise data center into the cloud. And, or maybe you just have a merger, an acquisition, and you say, this is the time. This is the time. Rather than continuing to figure out how we merge our data centers together, let's go to the cloud. And then there are customers that say, well, we're going to keep on-prem, but we're also going to add capacity. We're going to add value with Google Cloud. So that's another case that we see. The one next to it, DR and backup, is kind of goes together with it. We see the great thing about Gcve is you can use a variety of different replication tools. If you go into the Gcve pages on Google, you'll see they list a number of different DR backup replication tools. And you can use this as an augment your on-premises environment. You could have Gcve in addition to your on-premises environment. Could give you maybe another firewall against ransomware or malware in your environment, another place where you're protecting your data. Virtual desktops is the third one, and I see that a lot. We're working with a number of customers right now on VDI deployments using Google. And there they take advantage of Google's leadership in privacy, in performance, and are able to leverage either Horizon or Citrix. Most of my customers so far, I think, are mostly Citrix, but either one is supported by Google. And it's a great place to use CVS storage because you can use it either for your user profiles, or if you're maintaining separate file shares like user shares or group shares, you can also use CVS for that. And then some customers are combining this with DR. So they're basically saying, we're going to keep our on-prem VDI, but we're going to add Gcve VDI to either augment it, or if there's a failure, we can fail over there. So there's some interesting hybrid use cases I see happening with virtual desktop plus DR. And then finally, the promise of modernizing your applications. A great way to start taking advantage of all this Google services for cloud native applications. Basically, you move your apps and then start modernizing them once they're in the Google Cloud. So a great opportunity to not only take advantage of your short-term needs, but begin to modernize your applications. So basically, you can use Gcve to meet your needs both of today and tomorrow. They support a wide variety of workload needs with kind of performant infrastructure. You can take advantage. You have all those physical hardware CPUs. It's a dedicated environment. You're not sharing it. It's not a multi-tenant environment. You get Gcve as a dedicated environment. So you can use CPU overcommit for your non-critical applications. You can, or applications that can tolerate high levels of oversubscription, like VDI. You can further control your costs by bringing your existing licenses to the cloud, whether it's application licenses, database licenses, I think even some VMware licenses you might be able to bring to the Gcve cloud. And you have this kind of hybrid approach. You keep your legacy applications running while you expand your other applications to take advantage of native cloud services. So with that, it's really, you get dedicated, isolated infrastructure. You get integrated storage with the option to extend it. That's where my team comes in with Cloud Volumes service. You get really robust hardware. I think of all the hyperscalers that support VMware, I think this is probably the most impressive in terms of RAM, CPU, storage, just a great set. You can look at the specs here. You can see that you get a fully 100 gig, non-oversubscribed, fully redundant network design. And then, like I said, my favorite part, full lifecycle managed of the VMware stack, upgrades, helping you with failures, and it's fully cloud integrated with all Google Cloud components. So networking is integrated with the Google Cloud VPCs. Billing is integrated into Google Billing. Identity management in Google IAM. And then support. You can get support from Google. And in fact, that's how you get support for CVS. Google provides level 1 support for Cloud Volume Service. So you can get all your service for this joint solution directly from Google Cloud Support. Let's take one last look. I think I got one more slide on Gcve. Oh yeah. So this is, while the animation runs, let me explain a little bit about this. So like I said, Google's not just running VMware on some hardware and giving you access. You're getting a fully integrated cloud experience with Google innovations. You get a VMware environment that's ready to use in minutes. And that's what this little animation shows. I apologize, it's kind of small, but I thought it was kind of a quick example because basically you just go in here and you say, I want to create a VMware private cloud. You click, you pick how many nodes, I think, in what region. That's about all you say. And then in 30 to 60 minutes, you have it ready. And I can say this is how it worked for us. When we set up our first region to do our VMware certification together with Google and VMware, it took about, 45 minutes to deploy a new region, and we were ready to go. I can guarantee you it took me a lot longer to set up my ESXi hosts and bring up vSphere on them when I set that up in the lab many years ago. And you get the latest generation technology. You get the latest generation CPU, all flash NVMe storage, 100 gig networking on dedicated, isolated infrastructure with redundancy built in. So bottom line is you get an on-premises style private cloud experience, but in the public cloud. So with that, let's take a time for a polling question. So I've got a question here for you, which is, are you using Google Cloud VMware Engine today? So if you that, please go ahead and answer either yes, no, or is this something that you're planning to? We'd love to get your input. So I think this should be open for you to click on. Okay, great. So I'm starting to see some responses. I'll give you a little time. I'll take a sip of water here. So this is specifically about, are you using Gcve today or have plans, or you see how the responses are still rolling in. I'll give it a few more seconds. I have one more question for you later on that's more specific, but this is just kind of to get a sense of how many people are using it or planning to. So it seems like we've got a pretty good mix. Just got one more response. 2 more responses. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for responding. I hear my puppy knocking at the door. Hopefully he doesn't bark today. He wants to respond, I'm sure. But all right. Still getting responses. Let me go ahead and let's close the poll at this point, because I think this is pretty good. So it looks like a lot of opportunity for you to consider using Gcve. Right now, 76% are not using it, 7% are, and 15% considering it. So I hope that we give you a little bit of information on how you might take advantage of Gcve, and also together with that, considering using Cloud Volume Service. So let's get into a little more of the technical aspects of this. So here's a diagram on showing both Gcve and CVS and how you make the connection. So if you're familiar with Google Cloud, you might know that they've got this concept of virtual private clouds. I mean, it's typical of all hyperscalers, right? So at the bottom, you see your customer project. And this is where you would deploy Google resources. Things like traditional compute engine VMs or Kubernetes engine containers or other Google services. This could also be how you connect from Google Cloud into your on-premises environment. So you can see an interconnect there, kind of going back to the pink box with your on-premises environment. Now, to begin using Gcve, the first thing you would do would be peering the Gcve private cloud. So once you set up your Gcve private cloud, if you want to connect it to your customer project, maybe you have a jump host in your customer project, or you want access to your on-premises network, you would peer it with your customer project. And that's something you can do on your own. Same thing for CVS. So say your VMware engine, or not your compute engine or your Kubernetes engine applications need storage, you can set up a CVS volume. And to do that, you would peer your customer project with NetApp CVS. And that creates this connection to the volumes in the NetApp tenant project. So Google calls these tenant projects. You'd have a Gcve tenant project and you'd have a CVS tenant project. But there is no transitive routing. So we cannot connect from Gcve to CVS through your customer project. So to do that, we need to peer the two backend tenant projects. So basically, you'll make the connection from Gcve to CVS. The great thing about that, it's pretty easy to do because you do it right in the Gcve UI. So here's an example. So I'm going into the window of Gcve. I'm selecting network, private connections. You can see actually I have an existing one, but if you said add private connection, you'll get this menu. I pick NetApp Cloud Volumes. I pick the region, and then I specify the tenant project ID and the network connection. And that's it. That's about all you have to do to peer them. So again, to recap, it's in the Gcve UI. You pick network, add a private connection. You specify a little bit of information, and then Gcve and NetApp's operations teams, what we call site reliability engineering, they will do the peering for you. And our service level on this is 2 business days, sometimes a little bit faster, but it's good to know that because if you're going to need this quickly, getting this done in advance is a good thing to consider. So keep in mind, that's what it takes to connect the 2 services together. So now looking at it, why would you actually use them together? Why would you connect them together? This slide kind of covers that. And the big one is about scaling storage. So having more storage than you get with your default number of Gcve nodes. So I have customers that have very storage intensive needs. Imaging repositories, archives, document archives. I also work with a telco that has these monitoring and logging applications that keep very large storage in the VMDKs, in the VM disk files. One of them was like up to 9 terabytes, just one VM storage. So that's a lot bigger. When I used to size vSphere hosts and storage, our typical, we would say like 80 gigs as a typical VM's requirement. But some of these really large VMs can take a lot of storage. And we support up to 100 terabytes. And you can add multiple volumes if you like. And this allows you to scale your storage without having to add vSphere nodes. And it's just like Gcve. It's a fully managed UI. You don't have to manage the hardware. You don't have to manage the software. There's no patching. Basically, just pick through the menu, say, this is what I want. It's easy to change things dynamically. For example, you can change performance. We offer 3 levels of performance, different levels of throughput for CVS performance. So you can go from standard to extreme performance with just selecting a menu choice, and boom, it changes. And then I said, we have a wide choice of protocols. If you have Windows VMs, we've got SMB support. If you've got Linux VMs, we have NFS v3 or NFS 4.1. And then all the data management capabilities I mentioned, being able to take snapshots, being able to clone. And I can think of a couple opportunities to clone. You might want to clone a database to make a copy of it before you make changes. You might want to clone an application binary volume. Maybe you keep all your application binary and you want to do that an application upgrade. Just take a quick clone of it, do your testing on that. If it works, great. You can actually promote that into production, or decide it didn't work, destroy the clone. It's a very easy way to do some of your dev test work without destroying your production storage file system. And then replication. I talked about replication. I did not mention that it's incredibly efficient. So of course we can't break the laws of physics. So the initial replication, initial baseline, we've got to take all the bits in region A and move them to region B. We haven't figured out a way to speed that up. But once it's done, we replicate very efficiently. We replicate using a 4K block. So we're only sending the changes from the source to the destination region. So it's very efficient, and that works out to make it faster for you and also more cost effective. And like I said, all this data protection happens on the storage side. There's no use of the vSphere resources. It won't impact your VM performance. So that's the great thing about using this together with Gcve. Now, when customers come and talk to us about public cloud storage, they expect elasticity. They expect basically a utility model, right? When you need more power, you don't call up your utility company and say, hey, I need a couple more amps today. Can you set that up for me? You just expect that it's going to be there for you. And that's a common expectation where everything scales, whether it's compute, performance, capacity. However, it's not quite that simple. Not everything scales, and it can be limited. In fact, my project in Google Cloud has quotas to limit a lot of resources. And I think last time I looked, I've got like 8,000 different quotas in my Google Cloud project. So it's not super elastic. Many things are, but let's take an example that's more realistic. So this is looking at a Gcve environment, 108 cores. So it's a 3-node Gcve cluster. You get 108 cores of compute, 2,300 gigabytes of memory, and my estimate on storage, usable storage, is about 60 terabytes. Each node comes with 10 terabytes usable at 2-to-1 storage efficiency. Call it 20 terabytes. So for the 3 nodes, I combined 60 terabytes of usable storage. But say you need more. That's where CVS comes in. So you need 300. And I told you about our customers that have large databases. They have monitoring and logging applications. That's really easy to do with CVS. You just add more storage without having to add more vSphere nodes. So that's a great way to address those requirements. And connecting it is relatively straightforward. I mean, it's just you're going to make the peering connection. And we've supported this guest connection. So connecting your Gcve VMs, whether they're Windows or Linux, connecting them directly to cloud storage for some time now. And our customers use them in a variety of ways. I'm going to cover a couple use cases in a moment. But let me first point out, it's fully supported by all of us, by Google, NetApp, and VMware. It's documented. The screenshot you see on the right actually comes from Google documentation. This is in the Gcve documentation. We support both service types, so both CVS Performance and CVS Software Volumes. Basically, you create the peering like I showed you earlier, and then you mount the volume just like you would mount a volume in your normal on-premises environment, whether it's an NFS mount, an SMB share, a drive mapping. It's just like you do using the standard guest OS tools. And I listed the use cases. We've talked about data center exit, file sharing, databases, home directory, even that dev test use case where you basically take advantage of cloning and data protection to make your to ease your development processes. So with that, let me go to the second polling question we have today. We're going to ask you a little more about what you are doing now or what you might do with VM guest access. So it doesn't have to be something that you're doing right now today, but if you were to use a cloud VMware thing like Gcve, how would you use CVS? What are your priorities? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. And okay, great. I see some responses rolling in. It's very helpful. And while you do that, I'll take another sip of water. Thanks for continuing to respond here. I hope your day's going well. Should be Friday for most of us, unless you're diehard coming in from APAC late at night, in which case I thank you for spending your evening with us. I guess for them it would be Saturday morning, maybe. So I hope you have a great weekend. Otherwise, let's see where we are. We've got a good number of responses. I'd give it a little more time. Let's see where we are. We've got about 20 minutes left. I've got a little more to show you. I've got a demo to show you. And once again, my puppy wants to contribute. I don't know if you hear him barking, but he wants to contribute to the survey, but he doesn't get a chance to do so. All right. Well, I think that's done it. Actually, pretty interesting mix, and it's kind of what I would think. Let me go ahead and show you the results. So VM application file sharing seems to be the top one in general, but a large number of data center exit. Virtual desktop. I was surprised. I was surprised on how many customers we have are looking at virtual desktop. I think the pandemic over the past couple of years has caused people to revisit and say, what are we doing with virtual desktop? How can we make it better for our customers? And I see a lot. You're not alone. There are many organizations that are looking at how they can improve their virtual desktop environments. I see DevTest as one of them, and then database backups and such. So that's great. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate your responses on that. So let me go through some common scenarios. I'll give you a demo, and then we'll wrap up. So we talked about data center exit. Basically, almost every data center today uses some sort of file sharing, whether it's appliances like those from NetApp or Dell EMC or HPE or others. Almost everybody uses file sharing, or maybe you just make you have a Windows or Linux VM doing sharing, and so that's pretty common. And so this can be a great solution to help you replace those, maybe even consolidate those. So rather than having a bunch of different sharing solutions in your data center, you go to one solution with CVS. You enhance it with some of our additional capabilities. We've been doing this for 25, 30 years. We have a very robust, it's called NAS in general, but SMB, NFS, we have very robust protocol stacks for those. And in general, customers don't need to make much change, maybe a little bit of light refactoring, but they get the benefits of all their sharing needs met. They don't need to add additional vSphere nodes to get more storage. They can take advantage of our integrated data protection. It's a great solution. Or you might have dedicated VMs. I remember talking to customers who were looking at NetApp in my prior roles, and they were running Windows in a VM as file servers. And I thought, wow, how painful. I remember doing that a long time ago, because not only are you managing a Windows VM, you also have to handle all the patching and upgrades and all that stuff. It's so much better to have an appliance. That was one of the first things I did, probably mid 2000s, when I can't remember what it was, NFS supported iSCSI or was still SMB, but we moved to begin using networks, NetApp systems, or it was called Network Appliance back then, to support our Windows file sharing needs. Or Linux. I had a team, even though we had already switched to SMB and Windows, I had a team that wanted to build their own appliance using Linux. And so I supported them. Your engineers, go ahead and build it. It worked pretty well, but it failed a couple times. And every time it would fail, we would have all the company's engineering managers on the phone to me saying, hey, when's it going to be back up? So after, I think, 2 of those failures, they said, fine, we'll move that to NetApp too. So we moved all our Linux file shares to NetApp as well. So really not only simplifies your management, highly available, and again, offloads your needs from your vSAN requirements. And then database operations. I talked about how you can use cloud storage space rather than guest VM disk space to maintain your logs, backups. And we have several customers using that. Let me show you 2 use cases. These are 2 success stories we have. The first one is an Oracle success story. There is a tech company that was using Oracle. I think it was Oracle on Windows. And they started off doing their Oracle backups to the vSAN storage that was in Gcve. But they were using a lot of storage. It was like, I think there was like initially 60 terabytes, and it grew to 70, 80 terabytes. And they said, that's really expensive storage. especially for a backup. So they mounted CVS, and they are now using RMAN to dump those backups directly into a CVS volume. And they added additional data protection by replicating that backup dump to a second region. So they enhanced their data protection and reduced their costs by reducing the number of vSphere nodes they needed just for storage. So it's a great solution for this technology company. We have another technology company, actually a system integrator, that did a similar thing with SQL Server. But their challenge was they were doing a data center exit. They had a really tight timeline. And when they looked at all the applications across their environment, they said, hey, we've got some use of shares, and we need something in the Google Cloud environment that would allow us to basically bring these SMB shares up. And so they turned to CVS. And in fact, they had a number of SQL Server instances that used SMB shares, kind of the same way, either for logs or for backups. So this solved their problem and allowed them to complete their migration, meet their very limited time frame to get out of their data center and into Google Cloud. And then they took advantage of volume replication to also meet their DR requirements. So it was a great solution for them. And obviously management was happy. The team was happy because they were able to get out of the data center on time. So with that, I've got one last little demo, and we'll go through it. It's a live, it's actually a recording because there's a lot of pieces in this. You'll see how we go from CVS to Gcve to the actual VM, etc. So let me go ahead and start that. And so this is Gcve. This is the Cloud Volume Service user interface. This is in Google Cloud Console. And here we're creating a volume. We pick a region for the volume. We're going to scroll down. We're going to give it a name in the volume details, the name and the path to mount it. We're going to pick a size. The minimum size is 1 terabyte. We pick SMB, and this snapshot option, remember that because this is going to come back later. We pick the VPC that this is going to be connected to. There's snapshot policy if we wanted. We click save. Now, if this is your first volume in a region, it takes a couple of minutes for us to spin it up. So we sped this up. If it's your second or subsequent volumes, they're created almost instantly. But in this case, I think it was like about 3 minutes to create this first volume. With that is done, we go to the menu. And we have this thing called mount instructions. This tells you the path that you'll use to mount it. So now we go into Gcve, into the vSphere client. We're going to launch a browser. So now we're actually connected to that Windows VM. First, we're going to take a look at that. We have to first mount it. Right. So we're going to map a network drive. We're going to paste in that path that we got from the mount instructions. And we're going to mount that as drive Z. So now you see we've mounted it. It's drive Z. Let's take a look at the properties of that drive. We're going to click the Properties tab, and you take a look at it. You'll see it's 1 terabyte in size. So there's our volume, 1 terabyte. And we're looking at the volume right now. So let's go ahead and create a file. We're going to create just a notepad text file just to have something to play with here. Now we're going to go back into the Cloud Volume Service interface, and we're going to take a snapshot. Now we're taking a manual snapshot here. You could do an automatic snapshot. You can set them up to happen every hour. You can have them every day, whatever you want. But here we're going to take a manual one because that's much better for this demo. We're going to go back here now. There's our file. And just like users do, we're going to inadvertently delete that file and go, oh, I need to get that file back. So there's a couple ways you can do it. The easiest way, and your users could do this, they go into the drive properties, click on previous versions, and they mount that snapshot as another view of that volume. So now they can see the snapshot volume and they drag and drop into the current volume. So that's the easiest way to recover it. There's other ways you can do. Like I said, you could revert the entire volume if you wanted. And if you're a command line junkie, there is actually a snapshot directory at the root of the drive. They can go into that snapshot directory. They'll see all the date and times of previous snapshots, and they can manually copy files out of that. And it's the same thing for Linux. In the NFS directory tree, you will also see a snapshot directory, and you can go into that and recover files individually or revert the entire volume from the snapshot. So it's pretty cool. And let me recap kind of just what we saw here. So we created the SMB volume. We did that with the Cloud Volume Service UI. We also support a REST API. So you can use the Google Cloud Console UI. You can use REST API. Both work fine. we mapped a drive in the Windows VM to CVS. We created a file, took a snapshot, we deleted the file, and we used previous versions in the drive properties to show the snapshot and then drag and drop. So it's pretty cool, easy way to manage your storage and take advantage of CVS with Gcve. So basically, we're giving you a safe solution. We give you integrated data protection, full support of this combined solution by VMware, by Google, and NetApp that lets you quickly and cost-effectively move your vSphere environment to the cloud. So with that, I've got some links here on some additional information. On the left is a link to a landing page that we have so you can get more information. The QR code on the left should take you to that link. And there's some additional links. You'll see them in the slides that I posted, a blog I posted recently on Gcve guest VM migration, a document, I think it's a one-pager on reasons why these are a great solution. And then if you want more information, we're ready to talk to you, answer your questions, whatever you want. And that's the link on the right-hand side. It's a form to fill out to get in contact with one of our specialists. The QR code on the right will take you to that as well. So 2 different ways. You can look in the slides. You can type in the link if you want. So actually 3 different ways, or the QR code. So with that, I'm ready to see if there are any questions. Hey, there's Scott. So cool.
Yeah, Carl, great presentation, and appreciate the demos too. We do have some questions here. First one, are there any additional charges to use Gcve with CVS volumes?
No, not really. That's the great thing. Like I said, as long as you make sure that you deploy in the same region, it's really just the cost of your Gcve private cluster and the cost of your CVS volumes. There's no additional charges for integrating them or using them together.
Okay, super. There's sort of a related question from Ned, who's wondering about licensing. He says, my organization already has enterprise licenses with VMware, NetApp, and Google Cloud separately. Can they all be combined into one license? How do people handle licensing on those sorts of scenarios?
Well, for CVS, I don't think there'd be a change. There are some options if you're a current NetApp customer to work with your account team on kind of opportunities to I guess, include some CVS services in your current agreements. For VMware Engine, I'm going to defer to Manish. I don't know if he's available in terms of bringing those VMware Engine licenses into VMware Engine.
Okay. Well, maybe what we'll do is let's move on to another question, and then if Manish,
he says that is allowed. VMCU allows bringing the licenses into the Gcve environment. So you can use bring your value from on-prem into Gcve. That's a good thing to bring up with your VMware rep. In fact, even at NetApp, we have VMware account team, and they were just talking to us about the benefits of moving to cloud. I said, yeah, I know all about it. But yeah, so talk to your VMware rep and or your Google rep.
Okay, cool. Next question, what sort of performance should we expect between Gcve VMs and CVS volumes?
We've done a lot of testing of that. The one thing I would encourage you is, and for guest mounts, you're probably going to do this anyway, is consider multiple volumes, because each volume, there are certain limits in network connection throughput. But in our testing, we got up to 200,000 IOPS, and we got the full throughput that CVS supports. Now, on the highest service level, the larger volumes, we go up to 4,500 gigabytes per second. So the full throughput of CVS is supported on Gcve with CVS.
Okay. All right, super. Another question came in from Paul, and I think it came in before your demo, so I apologize if you covered this there. But Paul asked, what kind of NetApp storage options are available to Gcve implementations? And specifically, are there guest connected options?
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I demoed was that guest connect option. So yeah, so we support both guest connection. We're looking at other options to better enhance your storage support. It's definitely something to reach out to your Google team to see if there are other things that we can help you with CVS storage together with Gcve. But our current focus today and what we've documented and fully support is connecting your Gcve guests to CVS.
Okay, great. Next question here comes also from Ned, but he says, NetApp in our environment provided the necessary encryption for data at rest. Does Google Cloud now manage that responsibility? And what about data in transit? What happens with encryption there and sort of this layered solution?
Yeah, so there are a number of options that you can use for encryption. There are protocols that support encryption. We have basically our connection from Gcve to CVS goes over Google owned and Google secured physical links. So it never goes outside of Google's control. Many of those links do use encryption, physical encryption. Other ones are physically secured links. For example, they're in a access controlled environment. So we can, if you have special needs in that, we'd be happy to talk to you about those. But there's a high level of security available today for those connections.
Okay. All right. Super. Another question here. How's the joint Gcve CVS solution supported?
It's supported, like I said, it's supported by Google Cloud support. So you can get support on both CVS and Gcve, and so TSEs can bring the two teams together if needed directly through Google Cloud support. So we're available. I mean, NetApp is available as a resource to Google Cloud support, as well as the Gcve engineering team, all through one contact point.
Okay, super. Well, Carl, it looks like we're running up on time here, but I guess the last thing I wanted to ask was just if somebody wants to get started with NetApp, you've put some resources up here. Is there a particularly good thing that you'd recommend for just getting started?
Well, I'd say reach out to me, but I'm not a great researcher. So I'd say use the form on the screen. If people want to reach out to me, you're welcome to, but it's really better. We have a whole team of resources that are available around the world to help you get started. Answer your questions, no pressure. If you just want to get some questions answered, feel free to reach out to us, chat with us, and we'll see if we can help you with your IT needs, especially with vSphere and VMware Engine.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, Carl, thank you so much for putting together this presentation. This has been great. Really appreciate the answers in the Q&A as well. Thanks for the update. Yeah,
thanks everyone for joining. Just really appreciate your time today. And by the way, I think I might have misspoke when I said the throughput. I always get my math. It's 4,500 megabytes per second or 4.5 gigabytes per second. So I might have misspoke there. I get excited. So.
Excellent. Well,
thanks everyone. I really appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Carl. And before we wrap up, we do have one more piece of business. It's the $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner today is Amber Welpley from Texas. So congratulations to Amber. We'll be in touch about getting you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank NetApp for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for all your great questions here in the Q&A portion. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.